Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, we have a wide array of discussions to get into, topic of discussions this morning. And last week, and you would have seen that interview again yesterday on AM Prime, Marshall Walker joined me on the program to speak about the cost of textbooks, generally the cost of going back to school. Now, during that interview, publicly revealed that it's not the first time, by the way, but in that interview, she mentioned that she's chosen to homeschool her kids and also that she has a number of issues with the education system here in TNT. And I was curious. I think throughout that interview and for quite some time afterwards, my mind was on that particular topic. What is Miss Walker referring to? Well, I have the opportunity to continue that discussion this morning. She joins us once more on the program. Hello, Miss Walker, and welcome back to AM Prime.
Hi, thank you for having me as always.
Thank you very much for joining us once more. Thank you for agreeing to be on the program. So, as I mentioned in my introduction, you've publicly expressed your decision, and you are doing it, homeschooling your children.
11 years now.
11 years now, and you did mention that you have issues with the education system here in TNT. So that in itself is quite a large topic. So I'll give you the opportunity now to express yourself even further in respect to the issues you have with the education system.
Well, I don't actually think, and I know that there's a historic idea that, we have one of the best education systems in the world. I'm not quite sure that notion that we've been sold by our parents, you're seeing it play through into life. Are we producing the kind of citizen that says we have the best education system in the world? And of course, persons will speak to, well, we have a Trini in space, and we have a Trini doing great things on Google, and that's what we try to find the needle in the haystack and say, look, we've produced the best, so our education system is the best. But are we producing on average, the average Trinbagonian, are they turning out their potential? And the answer is no. You can look at crime, you can look at the state of leadership in the country. The answer is no. I don't think that the education system caters for every child, right? I mean, we can talk about the cost, we can talk about, the whether it's really access to everyone and whatnot. But even if you can get into the school, boys learn differently to girls. To have young men sit for how many ever hours at a time and focus, this quiet learning. Oftentimes when the classroom erupts into excitement, that's actually quelled. So you're asking these students to sit quietly, pay attention, not show any excitement, even if there was any kind of excitement in the topic that you're learning, and then have them really succeed. I think it's a recipe for disaster,
So that the argument that you're making is similar to our curriculum. Our education system has not necessarily evolved to meet, all the research that has been done over the years, all the science and data that's behind, instances, for example, boys learning differently to girls, girls excelling because of this or because of that as compared to boys. Have we not implemented that in a functional way?
No, at all. I mean, again, where are our trade schools? We look down on persons who can't do math and English. But the truth is, you always need a plumber. You always need a mason. You always need a carpenter. You see it on Facebook. You see, and well, of course, my husband is in construction. And you need to get the challenge to get someone who's really skilled in their trade, really skilled in their trade. You go to other countries and you have to be a certified electrician. You have to meet certain standards. We look down on this kind of education when truth and in fact, there's a large population who will benefit. There are young men and young women, my daughter, and it's not about looking down on anybody, because my daughter is not interested in math and English and sitting down and she would, if she were to be put into the education system, she would be an abysmal failure. That's just the truth. But if you look at her, she's blossoming. I And I mean, I honestly, I say to her all the time, I don't just love you, like I really like her. I like her as a person. I love having conversation with her. And there isn't anybody that she has not come, that hasn't come across her that doesn't have the same review. Every team that she's on, they speak about her leadership qualities. They speak about her ability to communicate, her ability to unite persons, her social skills, her ability to think through things and not just, be stuck in a box and, okay, well, it's not 2 plus 2. What am I supposed to do? And that is from stepping out of the education system where it's, learn to pass a test, because that's really what we're doing, right? Learn to pass a test. Are we teaching life skills? Are we teaching how to budget, how to make money? So you leave knowing angles and Pythagoras theorem, but you don't know how to make money. You don't know how to be an entrepreneur. You don't know how to manage money. If you were to get a lump sum of money, do you know how to manage it? Do you know how to save? Are you learning self-control in the education system? Are we building the character of our young people to really become the best citizen that they can be?
So
I
then
mean, I keep
you're making an argument, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that our education system in its current state and form is actually doing more to suppress the potential, the true potential of our young people.
absolutely. And the thing about this, I make no apologies in saying it. I make no apologies in saying it. They are to look at SCA. All the focus is pass SCA, sign all the past papers, forget thinking, forget asking critical questions. Why are you going so far outside of the box? Just pass the exam, do well, so you can move on to the next stage. Learning, I understood economics so well, but I did not understand how to sit an exam. So right now, what we're teaching is how to sit an exam, not how to understand the subject. It's how do you give the lecturer what the lecturer needs? How do you give the teacher what the teacher needs? Who is grading? What are they grading on? How do you sit an exam? That's what we're doing. We're focusing on exams. That's all it is. As I said, we're not building any character. There is no character in this.
So
And
then,
worse yet, if I could just add one last thing, what persons see is the same group of people every single day. So there's no exchange program. And then you wonder why the West doesn't understand the East, and or one section of society totally cannot have empathy for the other side of society because there is no interaction. Everybody just knows their little bubble that they live in. So if you go to an affluent school, all you know are affluent families. And maybe now and then you think you're going to some charity, you paint a hospital, and oh look, I've understood or I've experienced what the next side of the country looks like. It doesn't work.
so then, exactly in respect to the responsibility for the state of our education system, do you think it's an all-rounded thing, or do you think it's the actual education ministry in time, not just now, but of course past and present, that has allowed this to happen? In a previous conversation I just had, my guest was lamenting the fact that we shut down Valsian Teachers College. So teachers don't necessarily have the training to teach. They're learning as they go along as teachers in the education system. So exactly where does the responsibility lie for this system that we currently have?
I homeschool, right? So I obviously don't believe that teachers need any specific training. A proper curriculum will work with anybody who's passionate about young people. That's the bottom line. Again, the Valsain Teachers College teaching you to be an educator, not necessarily a teacher. They're teaching you to teach students how to pass an exam and excel on a piece of paper. How many persons teaching accounts are world-renowned accountants that understand how to manage the accounts and the marketing department? My husband and I were discussing that recently. Accounts and marketing always button heads, right? Or accounts and production always button heads because the production team, the project manager has a deadline the accountant saying, well, we can't release those funds. The engineer saying, well, we're gonna miss our deadline, and nobody knows how to communicate. Everybody can pass the exam, everybody can get really good scores, but nobody knows the real life situation. How do you mix it all up? Because we haven't been taught that. Because an accountant, somebody who's good at accounts, passing an exam, is now going to teach somebody how to pass an exam. You know, the person teaching business, have they ever had a successful business? You know, I mean, and these are the kinds of things that we don't have. We don't have, well, of course, I also think, so we have trade schools, that's one. I don't think that we're teaching men how to be men. We're not teaching women how to be women. That's an entirely different conversation. But I always say, you know, if it was really about choice, then you should teach motherhood as much as math. Because you have these young ladies coming out who've spent hours and hours and hours and hours of their lives learning math, but nobody's taught them motherhood. Nobody's explained to them anything about motherhood. Where are the breastfeeding classes in our schools if we're really interested in raising women? Where are the girls learning from persons who've been married for 20, 30, 40 years, explaining to them what it looks like? What are the sacrifices? And is it a sacrifice or is it an investment into the next generation when you become a mom?
But Mrs.
We're
Morgan,
not teaching
do
any
you
of it.
think? But do you think that society would be accepting of that? That already we have a issue with parents going to schools, having confrontations with teachers, or well, who are you to tell my child
Because
this?
we're not teaching how to control our emotions and how to communicate. We are not a country that can deal with our issues in a mature manner. Why? Because it's not being taught in schools. If children spend most of their productive hours in schools and all they are learning is math, English, and biology, I mean, let's be real. Parents no longer have the most influence in their children's lives. Like, let's be real. I put up something on social media where we did the numbers, right? You sleep for 8 hours, you go to school for 8 hours, you sit in traffic maybe for 2, 3 hours, then you have to get ready, you know, so whatever the period of time is. So from I would say 6 to 6, you have extracurricular activities. So let's be real. From 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., there is no time for a parent to pour into a child. The only way a parent's pouring into a child is because if they choose the right school or the right lessons, or you know the child has a great teacher who really looks out for them, past math and English. By the time 6 o'clock, everybody's drained, everybody's tired, and they're just getting ready to do the whole routine over again. And then you say, okay, Saturday and Sunday, you know, do we really have time? Can you compete for your child's life, for your child's heart, your child's soul, your child's mind? Can you really teach them everything they need to know about life in that time? You can't. And the school system is not teaching them about life. That's the bottom line. The school
So,
system is not. And you
so
ask
then,
the question whether persons will accept it.
uh-huh.
I know we've done enough interviews for you to understand that I believe in buy-in. There are three types of parents. And a parent is simply a leader in a home. Whatever you do in your home, you do it in business, you do it in government. No different, right? You can either be the parent that says, eat your vegetables or you'll get licks. You could be the parent that says, you know what? Do what you want? Don't eat your vegetables, eat ice cream all day, not my concern. Or you can be the parent that takes the time to develop a relationship with your child, to develop buy-in, to develop trust, so that they know that what my mom is asking of me is genuinely the best for me. And so they leave these decisions in the hands of the mom, and they trust you. You know, they say, you know, I know that life will be better. I will enjoy life more. I will be better off if I allow you to make these decisions when sometimes I don't feel for it. And that's the kind of leadership that we need. So that when we have a program that requires radical change, and I don't think that the country wants our education system. I think if we had somebody who were prepared to have a total overhaul, I don't think the country is going to resist that very much. You know, but buy-in. We need leadership that, has the charisma, that, that has the integrity, that has what it takes to get that buy-in. So that if we move to something different because we want to move away from the type of society we are and grow as a society, then we will have buy-in from the country.
So, Ms. Walker, where do we? By the way, I like how you turned the past interviews onto the hoster. but where do we start then with trying to even begin fixing the plethora of points that you made this morning? Where do we even begin? It sounds like a mammoth task
It
that.
does. And I mean, and I'm not pretending that it's easy. I'm not pretending that it's going to be easy at all. Um, well, there's certain, you're taking me way back now. I mean, it seems like way back to my parenting activist days. So that would be maybe about 8 years ago, where I had presented at Arthur Lockjack. I wrote a column on it, but I presented a little bit more detail in Arthur Lockjack, where parents should be paid to parent. It's not something, well, that's the first step, right? I do not take anything from the government to educate my children. So I'm not a drain on the treasury. My children are not taking up any spot in the public school system. We have an issue even with private schools. We do not have enough spaces, but not everyone can afford to be at home. Can we incentivize? And this is something that we see happening in Brazil. I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head. I know MP Rodney Charles had actually brought it up as well. It's a really good program. I'll have to find it and maybe send it to your viewers one day. But we want to incentivize parents. So can we think about remember those credit card points where in the back it lists all the places you could go and redeem your points and stuff. You could you could shop with it, you could do your groceries with it, pay a light bill with it, and these are points. And of course, in Trinidad, everything is subject to corruption. So we're pretending that we don't have that culture. That's another culture that we'll have to fix, right? We're assuming that the leadership manages it properly. So you attend a PTA meeting, you have points. You get your kids to do their homework, you have points. Your kids are in extracurricular activities, you have points. And different extracurricular activities. So for example, you're not just doing sports, but you're doing something where you're giving back to the community. So the more involved a parent is in their life, the more that you're seeing is that kind of student, that kind of child that demonstrate the ability to get, where you'll see indicators. Can they manage money? Those different, and of course, we'll have to do different projects and whatnot. A parent can, at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, look forward to a check. As I say, it may not be money, it'll be a point system. So that way, again, it's not necessarily finding money to pay parents, but this is where partnerships come in. So you can, the groceries, as a city and tech, WASA, so it can go towards paying for bills and whatnot. So there is a real incentive to parents. And it's not that persons will say, well, I shouldn't have to incentivize you to parent. But the reality is, and I use my mother all the time as an example. She was a single mom, and on any given day, struggled to put food on the table for us. So I played in the first ever female intercall final. I don't think she was there, or maybe came late after work. There was just so much in my life that she missed out on because she was busy trying to survive. If we can help parents come out of survival mode, if we can pay parents to parent, if we can put a value on caretaking, on raising children, then the parent will not have to have divided interests. The parent won't find themselves struggling to put food on the table. So I want to be there for you, but I have to leave home at 4 o'clock. I have to leave home at 4 o'clock in the morning, get home really late. I'm exhausted. Now, if I know that I can earn a little stipend from just doing your homework,
well, this is the thing, Mrs. Walker. So one of the problems that I've raised multiple times on this platform is the fact It's a fact. It's not an opinion. We have children raising children. That's a huge problem that we are facing here in
We
TNT.
definitely do.
But then if you think, and I hear your points, but if you think that incentivizing, being a parent is one way that we can look at it, don't you suppose that people might take advantage of that, where we have children making children, we have children raising children, and that is just going to continue because I get a little stipend for having a kid and keeping them at home. Don't you think that in
Well,
itself,
of course you have to have, and as I said, we're assuming that it's managed well. And it's funny that just yesterday I was having a conversation about live sport, and it was actually with the former commissioner of police, and he was saying that the program itself, the design of the program was phenomenal. So, as with everything, it can be subject to mismanagement. That's a whole other conversation. And that's why I said, we can develop plans and whatnot. Um, Going back to the education system in particular, and unfortunately, you find that many of these things, the root of it is corruption, because we spoke about the textbooks last interview, right? And where does the textbook problem come from? It comes from corruption. This entire Ministry of Education curriculum, you know what I say all the time? How about we just ditch it, buy a homeschool curriculum, which will be far cheaper for the state, for everybody. You won't need to teach, you won't need to have any teachers' college, because a homeschool curriculum, if you were to ever look at it, it's a complete package, right? And there are ways to actually do it free, but we're talking something that's easy to streamline. It's there, you don't have to recreate the wheel. So we won't have any of it. There's a homeschool curriculum, you purchase it and you deliver it to the class and you say, use it. Do you know what my homeschool curriculum looks like? It puts in quotation marks, say this. And the parent has to just say this. So you are learning as you go along how to teach the math, because it's explaining to you. You just need to do some reading the night before or the hour before you start to teach. And we'll say, Singapore math, because we do Singapore math versus local math. And, it tells you, this is what we find, this is the better way, da, 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 and this is what you want to do. And it will actually say things like, you're going to find yourself wanting to do this, don't. Do this instead. So all of that is actually in a homeschooling book.
We speak about we speak about Singapore as always being a good example. As a not just the system, but the nation as a whole. To be a visionary for TNT. Same thing with Scandinavian countries. We speak about Scandinavian countries when we're using examples of the education system there. But my final question to you is, what are the attitudes that are necessary? You spoke about management. Let's speak about attitudes now all around.
Now, I think persons, and it starts with the attitude of the leadership. And I go back to that buy-in. I think if we have right leadership that can inspire us, persons will be willing. We work with a lot of communities that are not affluent. And there is a desire to change. I mean, I have conversations with young men that all they hear all day is shout, because we believe that the answer to everything is this kind of militant shout and curse at them. And that's the only way that they're going to stay on the straight and narrow path. And it upsets me to no end. No one is saying to them, I believe in you. I know that you can do better. This is your time. Go out there and grab it. No one's doing that. And again, it comes down to a parent that's empty, has nothing to pour when the day comes. So there has to be an overall everything. I mean, you can't just say education in a vacuum, you know. But the attitude will come when the leadership's attitude changes. So we talk about Singapore, and I'm always wary to use Singapore, because the truth is, I think they may be close to being a dictatorship. right? I mean, whether there's this strong democracy, not a dictatorship like, say, like Venezuela, but the militant way, we have to find a way that embraces our who we are. You know, the truth is we do have a carnival mentality, but through the carnival mentality, that does not have to be a negative aspect of Trinidad. Our creativity, our ability to find peace through the turmoil, those things can be converted to positives. But I'm not sure that anyone has. So we either go, you know, well, it's working in Singapore, so let's use it. It's not going to work for us. So we need a leadership that will accept who we are. I'm going to say something very controversial, but I don't think Eric Williams likes Trinidadians. You know, if you read his books and all of that, he's the one who insulted us about carnival mentality. You know, how do you get so much done? But while the country's jamming on Monday and Tuesday, I use the time to be productive. You know, and I mean, I'm not interested in carnival, but we have to meet us where we're at as a people, and
You
we
know,
have to.
we're actually gonna have to we're going to have to end it due to time. But you always leave us with one statement that just leads on to the next. Yes, controversial statement indeed, but we're gonna have to end it there, Mrs. Walker. Thank you very much, though, for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Take care. All the very best. You know, sometimes in precinct EM Prime, and sometimes you wonder, boy, what are we going to speak about next? When you have a guest like Mrs. Walker, who just leave you with one notion, like, oh, okay, Eric Williams did not necessarily like Trinidadians. Well, that's a controversial topic indeed. But ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to get into that this morning. We're going to take a break here on the program. We will return shortly. I know one individual who